What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chord Chronicles. Oh my gosh, it has been an insane week. I know I say that every week, but this week has been particularly, how shall we say it? Fun. Lots of things going on over here. I know you have lots of things going on over there, Amy. You want to talk about what you've been working on behind the scenes while you're trying to listen to all this music?
The building that I work in has been kind of closed. We haven't had regular hours since like before COVID, and finally get to reopen this week. I'm so ready and also so terrified that I've forgotten something, but we're not going to talk about that. It's been incredibly busy, but at least this was actually a fairly good week for music.
Actually, it was a really good week for music, surprisingly. I mean, surprisingly in some ways, I guess, because there are a couple artists we're going to be talking about that we were already familiar with. We know their work in a lot of ways. So we knew, I guess I should include and say we but I knew with a couple of these artists what I was going to get going into it because a couple of these artists, we've listened to one of these artists numerous albums, and then another artist, he's just famous. So I don't want to get into that too much yet because we do have a little bit of news to talk about. On a personal note, I have some dental work and all kinds of fun things coming up, but so that's been a challenge this week to try to listen to some of this music, but not as bad as of a challenge as like what Bruce Willis. I don't know if anyone out there has heard the news. I'm sure a lot of you have. Bruce Willis, famous actor for many movies. I'm not going to go into his catalog. He's a really good actor, but he has been diagnosed with dementia. So that's really sad to hear because a really good actor, like I said. Action superstar, but and a funny actor as well at times.
Yeah.
I remember on Moonlighting. That's probably the first time I saw Bruce Willis was with Sybil Shepherd on Moonlighting. So I don't know exactly what year, and he may have done things before that, but that's just the first thing I remember. And then of course you have Die Hard and everything. I'm not going to get into that. Like, his he did pretty. He was in a lot of movies. So
Yeah.
really sad to hear that. It seems like a lot of these actors and celebrities that I heard and listened to, like these musicians, we're having a lot of people passing away lately. It must be like we're getting old or something. I don't know.
Speak for yourself. I'm the younger sister.
Yeah, I know, but you're still not going to be able to stop time. But on a more somber note, we have been going over these celebrity deaths, just to basically give one last shout out, maybe to someone, or something like that. I'm not going to give any kind of eulogy or anything, but we did have numerous deaths this week. Last week, I think we only had one,
Yeah.
but this week, I mean, quite a few. I'm just going to go through this list real fast. On February 12th, David Jude Jolicoeur, he was a rapper from De La Soul. He was 54. He passed away. February 14th, Valentine's Day, we lost Jerry Jarrett. He was 80. I don't know. He's not music, but he was a professional wrestling promoter, celebrity. He's been on a few things with the WWE network. They've been doing some, I guess, behind the scenes. Like they'll talk about. I can't remember the name of the program. Something about behind the territories, I think. But they talk about old stories behind the scenes because even if you're not interested in professional wrestling per se, some of the crazy things that happened outside or behind the scenes and outside of that business, some of those stories are funny and frightening at the same time. So that's a good show to actually listen to or watch. I always say listen to because that's all I do is listen to music. But yeah, that's a really good show. But yeah, Jerry Jarrett was involved with the National Wrestling Alliance, and he was involved with the CWA, which was Memphis Wrestling, and Memphis Wrestling, Jerry Lawler. Actually, I forgot about to mention that at the top of the program as well. He had a stroke, and he was in intensive care. I believe he's doing better now, but I haven't heard any update on that. So hopefully, Jerry Lawler is able to kick out, use that professional wrestling term and be corny about it. But yeah, we did lose Jerry Jarrett on Valentine's, and we also lost Tim Amar. He was a metal singer with the band Pharaoh. He was 59. We haven't went through any of his stuff yet, but I believe he's Canadian. I may be wrong about that, but the band Pharaoh, I cannot remember. I believe they're Canadian, but yeah, we did lose him. I don't know the actual cause of death of some of these individuals, but I don't really want to delve too much into that. February the 15th, we lost Raquel Welch. I'm sure everyone knows Raquel Welch. I mean, she was 82. She was an actress famous for many, many of these. The people that listen to this music, I'm sure they had that 1 million BC poster. So I'm sure that was. But yeah, she was a pretty good actress though. And then I did not realize this next person I'm going to talk about was involved with so many themes, I guess I would say. On February the 17th, we lost Gerald Fried. He was 95. He was an American composer, but I said many themes. I mean, he composed music for television series from the 60s and 70s. Stuff like Mission Impossible, Gilligan's Island, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Shotgun Slade, Roots, and last but not least, Star Trek, the theme from Star Trek. So, I was amazed to read, so many different things. But I was sad to hear that. And then finally, the last one that I have, February 19th, we lost Richard Belzer. He was 78. He was with a few different programs. I remember him over the years. Law and Order SVU was the big show I think everyone remembers him from. I remember him because he had I guess, a late night talk show. I think it was late night, but he had Hulk Hogan and Mr. T on. So this would have been the 80s. This is when Hulk Hogan and Mr. T were doing the rock and wrestling, I believe, thing. And yeah, so like the memories do come back sometimes. I listen to too much music; it pushes a lot of the other things out, I think. But I remember Richard Belzer. Don't want to speak ill of the dead, but he was a little bit smug about how fake professional wrestling is. And yes, it's predetermined, but everyone can come at me. It's not fake. And Richard Belzer learned that day that it's not fake because he asked Hulk Hogan to just put a hold on him, and he was being smug about it. And I mean, Hulk Hogan at the time was, roided out, huge, largest arms in the world, and all he did was just cinch his arms and put a face lock on Richard Belzer for, I mean, 5 seconds. Not even 5 seconds, and he was out. He put him to sleep. And Belzer fell and cracked his head on the floor. So it was pretty bad. That happened on that television show. Bam. And you hear his head, bam, off the floor. They come back, and he's got blood on his head. We'll come back. We'll be back. And he sued Hulk Hogan for quite a bit of money. So I think he has a house or something. Wherever he built it, he used that money and named it like Chateau Hogan or something like that. So I guess that's kind of funny. But yeah, he was pretty smug. But, well, but
Yeah, but I love Detective Munch, though.
yeah, I think that pretty much was him as a person as well. But we're not here to talk about Law and Order SVU. We're here to talk about some albums, as we always do. And like you said at the top of the program, it was a really good week for music. I wasn't surprised with a few of these artists. Like I said before, we're already familiar with some of these groups, and individual artists. But I'm just going to start with, I guess the first album we had was What the Temptations, Masterpiece. The album came out February 21st of 1973, and I don't know in the number, the list of number of albums. This is album, what, 15? I don't know. The
Probably
Temptations,
more than that.
oh my goodness. I mean, they've had a lot, but we missed, I think we missed the album with when they reworked Papa Was a Rolling Stone, and it's a classic. But I mean, we've listened to so many Temptations albums, and typically they're good. I mean, a lot of times I think we got burnt out on that sound because there were so many albums in what 70 and 71. The Temptations may have had like 6 albums just right then, maybe more. I don't know, but there were a lot, and it took me a while to just step away. I had to step away from the Temptations for a little bit. Now, I'm going to say it right off the bat. This album, I don't consider this really a Temptations album. I don't know. This is Norman Whitfield. This is a Norman Whitfield, and I can't remember the backing group right now. Is it like the Funketeers? It's something like
Funk
that.
Brothers.
The Funk Brothers, yeah. The Funketeers would be good though. But yeah, anyone out there listening, we need to bring that back. But I'm not going to go through the personnel list. I mean, you can get on Wikipedia. It is an extensive list of different, artists for all the different instrumentation on this album. But Norman Whitfield was the producer. I mean, he's been the producer for a while. He helped the Temptations have a resurgence with their career. I would say that. But I would also say I'm surprised this is a single album because I don't know if you could fit Norman Whitfield's ego on one LP. But he is good, but you can tell he thinks very highly of himself because this is Norman Whitfield's masterpiece featuring the Temptations. But that being said, it's a good album. Anything with Norman Whitfield's going to be involved with, it's going to be, 3.5 stars at least. That's where I would start with it. And you can go up from there. Anything with the Temptations is going to be around that and usually better. I mean, we have 4-star plus. So I knew as soon as I saw this, it was going to be good. I talked about it last week. It's not as good as I thought it was going to be, though. I will say that. A lot of people did complain about this album, actually, to the Temptations, that they weren't on it enough. Because there are lots of musical breaks and interludes throughout here. I mean, I understand the tone. I know what Norman Whitfield was trying to do. He's trying to paint the picture of life in the Los Angeles. No, is it? No, they're originally from what, Detroit and stuff.
Yeah, Motown.
Okay, so Motown. But I think he's just trying to be general with it about the ghetto lifestyle, growing up in the ghetto, and how things are hard and the struggles and the challenges you face and how we need to try to love one another, all those themes throughout this. And honestly, he may have had a movie in mind trying to do something with it because I can see a lot of the he's trying to paint a picture. So I can appreciate that. I can. But I mean, I honestly could go track by track on this album because there's not that many songs. The album opens up with Hey Girl, I Like Your Style. I would say it is a prototypical Temptations song. It actually, though, it sounds a little bit older. It doesn't sound like they maybe needed to move forward a little bit into the future because it is 73. This sounds like something that came out in the 60s to me. Still good, but it does sound a little bit dated. But I liked it. I do like it. And then you go into the only other song on side one, which is Masterpiece. I mean, it's not a masterpiece. It's good, but it's too long. And usually I can listen to long songs. But this thing just goes on and on and on. It's like 13, almost 14 minutes long. It's just it's just too long. I can't imagine having this on vinyl. And I mean, you just had to put it on and just do whatever else. I wouldn't be able to just sit there and listen to this numerous times on a vinyl. So, and that's it for side one, because you have such a long track with Masterpiece, which Masterpiece would be better suited to the backdrop behind a movie. So, but then side two, you go into Mall. I actually like Mall. They're talking about having I guess a hillbilly, like a really a country mother, and growing up in that fashion. So yeah, I like it. I like there's some guitar in that, which I thought was really nice. So I think that song was pretty good. Law of the Land. That's one of those songs I was talking about. The theme of harmony and trying to accept one another and live. Times are hard. We need to come together. That kind of thing. Plastic Man. They're trying to be. He's trying to bring one of the classics back, like Papa was a Rolling Stone. I think he's trying to reimagine, not reimagine that, but he's trying to go with that hook, the same lead up and everything. I did not like that whatever sound they used for the Plastic Man. I think it's harmonica. I hated it. It brings me out of it every time when they do that. It's right in the middle of everything. So, and for to be a good producer, I didn't feel this album was. I don't think the production's as great as some of the previous work. And then finally, the last song on the album is "Hurry Tomorrow." It only is involved Damon Harris, one singer in this song, with I think the Temptations are just like saying "Hurry Tomorrow" in the background a little bit. Um, I actually like this song. It's about Damon Harris. I don't know if it's true, if it's like a biographical thing, but it's about one night he took hallucinogenic drugs. I'm assuming acid. I don't know. It's at that period of time, so I'm assuming. But it's talking about, man, hurry and get up here, because they tell him it'll be over tomorrow. So he's like, hurry tomorrow. So I think he's not having a good time. So, because at the beginning when they're trying to give it to him, he's like, "No, that ain't me, man." So he gave in to the peer pressure and paid a price. So, it may have been tongue in cheek. I don't know but it may have been biographical. I took it as biographical, and I actually liked it. It's a pretty good song. Excuse me. It's one of those days. But I don't really have anything else to add. I know I've talked at length about this album, probably too much. I don't think it's a masterpiece, but it is a good album. But if you're looking at trying to get into the Temptations, definitely go with some of their older stuff first, and maybe work your way up to this. So I would say that. I think the cover is pretty cool because it was, I think they actually had somebody sculpt the Temptations faces, and then took a picture of it. So that's pretty cool. I don't know that artist's name. I did see that when I was looking at the list. You can find that on Wikipedia. I gotta love Wikipedia. Everyone donate if you can. So, but I'm gonna turn it over to you. See what you thought about Masterpiece before I give my stars, since I've droned on long enough. I'm sure everyone's tired of hearing my voice. So, what did you think about it?
Well, I did look it up while you were talking. This was their 17th album.
I said
Yeah.
15th. That was close. I
You
would
were
have won
pretty
the price.
close.
Price is right. Ding, 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 ding.
But they've had 43 albums, so this was actually still pretty early. Only number 17. Now, they started in like 64, so they'd been doing this for a while. I was originally excited about this album because I like the Temptations, and I think I was just. I think I was a little confused. You know, I might have been mixing it up with a Spinners album that's coming up for us a little bit later. I know that one's going to be excellent. It's got some big hits on it. Either that, or when I was originally researching albums for this year to make our spreadsheet, I just skimmed and read the Wikipedia page wrong. there's a couple of previous hits that were mentioned on that page, Smiling Faces sometimes, and Papa Was a Rolling Stone. And I think possibly I just, read that wrong and thought that they were mentioned because they were tracks on this album. They're not. They were produced by Norman Whitfield. That's why they were mentioned. And like you said, this was intended to be his masterpiece, not the band's. He wrote and produced everything. None of the big hits I was expecting, so it wasn't as exciting as I had originally thought. And that's no disrespect to the Temptations or Norman Whitfield. I've got a ton of respect for the band and Norman Whitfield. He did some great work. Not just those 2 songs, but many, many, many others that I love, both before and after this. He worked a lot with Barrett Strong. We mentioned him recently after he died, late January. So, I don't intend to criticize Norman Whitfield's work at all. It's just, I was expecting more of the stuff that I really love from the Temptations than you're actually going to find on the track listing.
So you were expecting a Temptations album, right?
Yeah, I was. And I was expecting some of those songs that I know I love. So once I realized that they weren't on here, I was a little disappointed, I have to say. But it is still the Temptations. It is still Norman Whitfield. They're all good. Now, having said that, the Temptations have had some stuff in recent years. Well, not recent years, but we reviewed in recent years. That was a little disappointing. Like you said, we've listened to a lot of their stuff. Some of it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. But the consistent thing is the Motown sound, the Temptations sound. That's always great, even if the songs are a little less exciting or a little more boring. So, after I got over my disappointment at this not being what I expected, I figured, excuse me, figured it probably wasn't going to be bad, even if it wasn't what I had expected. And I was right about that. It's not bad. The Temptations, just those voices, the harmonies are so good. The style, of course, I love that. We've been over all that ad nauseum with all the other Motown stuff we've reviewed previously. We do get a little burned out sometime, but I love that style. And the Funk Brothers, they worked on a lot of those other Motown hits too, not just the Temptations, but other artists, and they are really good. So I want to make sure I give them the credit that they are due. They're great. They are featured heavily on that title track, like you mentioned. It does get a lot of criticism because you mentioned how long it is. It's 13 minutes and 49 seconds long. There's only about 3 minutes of vocals on that song. It's mostly instrumental. It is kind of hard to say that it's a Temptations song when they're only on a little more than 20% of it. I agree with that. Doesn't mean it's a bad song. The music was great. It was funky and soulful and enjoyable. But I would say it's more a Funk Brothers song featuring vocals by the Temptations, not a Temptations song. And it is too long. It wasn't terrible, even for me, because the music is good, but 13:49 is almost always going to be too long unless there's some major changes going on throughout it. You've really got to have a lot of progression for a song to be that long, and that wasn't the case here. It could have easily been trimmed by several minutes and still been a very good song. And by the way, I am referencing other reviewers here a little bit, but we don't base our reviews on those. We go back and read those after the fact, after we listen, so just want to throw that out.
Yeah, we like to see how wrong those other people are.
Yeah, so we listen to it first and come up with our impressions, but then we do go and research this stuff. So, to be fair, I did read about this one while I was still listening to it, because, like I said, several minutes of just an instrumental, and I kind of got a little bit bored, and I felt like the song was basically over then anyway. So after the Temptations stopped singing and it became clear they were done, I went ahead and started doing my research on that song. But I don't want to sound too harsh. The music was good on that. It wasn't bad at all. It was just too long. I did hear a lot of Papa Was a Rolling Stone in that one, though. You can hear the connection and similarity, and that's not the one that gets brought up in other reviews as sounding similar, but I definitely did pick up on that. And I mean that is a good thing. Papa Was a Rolling Stone is a great song. Ma, the song that you mentioned, that one also reminded me of something else, but it was something less expected. That song, especially the beginning of it, oh my god. Argent, Hold Your Head Up. It is so similar. It's odd. Kind of fun. Definitely a strange song, though. And that sounding like Argent, also strange. I'm not saying it's a copy or a sample or even an homage or anything like that. Hold Your Head Up did come out first. It was from 72. Released as a single in February 72, so it could have influenced this one, but I'm not gonna say it definitely did. This album was recorded in 72 and 73. It could just be a coincidence. It's not like it's a complicated guitar riff or anything like that. But the similarity was striking enough. I was listening with Luke, and that song started, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and we're like, what is this? This is something. There is one other thing I wanted to mention about that song. The song was fine, but there was one other thing that was a little irritating to me, and this is just me being picky, but the accent. The main vocals, as far as I can tell, are by Richard Street, who was born and raised in Detroit, as was Norman Whitfield, who wrote the song. Most of the other Temptations were at least partially raised farther south. Not him. So, the accent was fake. It wasn't exaggerated enough to be really grating, like I complain about pretty often. It was actually fairly subdued, but it's still a little bit irritating to me. Just a personal thing as somebody who has a real southern or country accent. Not that mine is a deep south accent either. It's not. But I don't play it up and pretend like it is either. I just don't like fake accents, especially in music. I get that he was playing a role, and you could say it's like acting, where some of that faked style of talking is essential. I don't totally disagree with that, but it does still kind of annoy me a little. I understand it, but I don't totally like it. I actually did not pick up on the annoying harmonica or whatever it was that you mentioned about Plastic Man, but the music of that song didn't stand out to me at all, really. I did like the lyrical content of it. I know a lot of people who are so-called plastic men, always trying to be somebody else, somebody they see as better, just faking it to be popular and admired. Really playing that stuff up, never really being real or reliable. And maybe I was like that too when I was younger. Most of us are, but it can be irritating to see in someone else and a little sad to see too. And I do know people who, still just, they'll do or say anything to make other people look up to them. I know people like that, so I kind of enjoy the lyric on that one. Hurry Tomorrow, I did want to mention the intro to that one. There's a little skit, them talking, and they said, "It's the bomb." I did not realize that phrase was popular all the way back in the 70s, but there you go. It is. That just goes to show you, we're not as far removed from the 70s as you might think. There was also a very piercing whistle in that one, though. It was fortunately brief because it hurts. you know, and the song did get busy and atonal toward the end for me, so it was kind of rough, but it was also to emphasize the feeling. I get that, but it was kind of rough for me to listen to. That's really the only thing I can really criticize much at all about the album, though. It was the only thing I would say that is bad, and that wouldn't be as bad for all listeners as it was for me. And it was quick, just one little whistle, but it kind of just made me go ah. But otherwise, the album was pretty good. There just weren't any really big standouts from it. So I'm gonna go ahead and give my star rating, and then I'll let you. For me, this one was 3.5 stars. Not as high as I was expecting to rate the Temptations when I saw it on the schedule, but 3.5 is still actually a pretty good score. Not the best we're gonna have this week, but oops, spoilers. We're gonna get to those in a little bit. What did you rate it?
Well, first off, it's funny that you brought up the Motown sound because this is the last Temptations album that's recorded at Hitsville, USA studio. And they migrated to, after this, they migrate to Hollywood. And I think Norman Whitfield only produces one more Temptations album, 1990, which is weird. He got it at 1990. What? So
43 albums.
Yeah, so we're almost to the end of the Norman Whitfield era. So I mean, maybe I should appreciate this a little bit more. I don't know what's coming up. So, but yeah, I agree. I was a little bit underwhelmed with the album. I hovered back and forth on the 3.5 to 4 spectrum because I like the production, but I don't love the production. So that's why I gave it 3.5 as well. So we're in agreement on it. It's not a bad Temptations album, but like I said, this is not. It's not a Temptations album, really. It's just featuring the Temptations. At least for me, I'm just never going to consider this a Temptations album as much as I would say it's just Norman Whitfield, and he had them help him out. He wanted some good singers to help out with a few of the parts. So, but I don't know. It's still a good album, and I feel like I've just crapped all over Norman Whitfield. I don't mean it like that. It just doesn't seem like a Temptations album. And a lot of journalists agreed. They were calling Temptations the Norman Whitfield choral singers and things like that. So that may have led to the departure of Norman Whitfield as well. I don't know, but now the next album that I'm getting ready to talk about, because you didn't have the opportunity, you weren't lucky enough. I'm going to say that from the start. You weren't lucky enough to get a chance to listen to this one yet, because this is my solo album for the week. I guess we're going to keep Jeff's just jamming right now. So, my solo album this week was an artist that, like I said last week, I figured it was going to be jazz, and that could be good, that could be bad, because a lot of times the jazz is just like Chick Corea, something like that. Oh yeah, all day long. Just put that on, you can listen to that, that's good. Some other things that maybe we've reviewed, it's good, but oh my gosh. And a lot of times I consider myself just not knowledgeable enough about this particular music to give it justice at times. But this album, I didn't have to worry about that. I'm going to talk about Ramsey Lewis, Funky Serenity. Love that album title. This album came out February 24th, 1973. Like I said, no knowledge. I had no idea who Ramsey Lewis is. And I think he's actually, his a little bit of his earlier work, maybe from like 68 or 69, before we really started listening and reviewing stuff, is when Ramsey Lewis had initially made it big. There's not a lot of information on Wikipedia about this album. You're not going to see a lot, but I mean, it's not complicated, I guess I would say. It's just a good, funky, just jazz. It's like a funk soul jazz. It sounds very 70s. I mean, I guess if you can say that, if you want to give it that, oh, it sounds 70s. Yeah, it does. It sounds awesome. But Ramsey Lewis is a pianist, which I didn't know that. Which was, you got Chick Corea, now you have Ramsey Lewis. So I think jazz pianist I like better than maybe a jazz trumpeter. A whole album of that type of thing. I think most of the time, and that may have been what it's happens. And one thing about this album that I found interesting, one of the songs was sampled by a tribe called Quest, and I know everyone out there, it's a hip hop band and or group, hip hop band, hip hop group, either way. But there's a song called Electric Relaxation. I've already heard that song. I mean, I've listened to a tribe called Quest, and you can find that on I think it's Midnight Marauders is the name of that album. I don't have that right in front of me right now, but Beck, the artist Beck, also sampled Dreams on his song Deborah, which I didn't realize that because I listened to a little bit of Beck and I do like Beck and I appreciate his work. He's a little bit underappreciated, I think, at times, but I'm not familiar with that song. But yeah, the song Dreams is near the end of the album. It's almost at the end of the album. It's pretty good. I mean, I'm not gonna go track by track on this. There are a couple other songs I think that have been sampled from this. So I mean, this thing is, it's just an album you can put on, except for the first song, because I know you have what, misophonia, and when things
Yep.
get busy at times, it's just overload. The first song, it's I'm probably gonna butcher it. It's an African. It means making love, but Kufanya Mapenzi, I think is how it is. How you say that? I don't know. There are a couple parts in that that just get incredibly busy, and it's okay. It doesn't last very long. So as long as you can hold on for the ride, you're fine, and then it's just smooth. I am going to point out the personnel because it's not a big list, and a couple of these artists are severely underrated. I hope that I have the opportunity to find more from these artists' work because the production's nice on this as well. But I'm just gonna go through it and I'll explain. Okay, like I said, Ramsey Lewis is on piano, electric piano, and harpsichord of all things, which was interesting to hear. You have Cleveland Eaton on bass, electric bass, and percussion. Oh my goodness, his bass, like he's playing an upright bass, and it just sounds smooth and spongy, and like it's just great. And like the song "My Love for You," it's track 4. Everyone check that out because oh, it's so smooth. It sounds so nice, and it's the kind of jazz that I can just listen to. You have Morris Jennings on drums, congas, and percussion. Oh, all over this album. He kills it. It's great. And then finally, you have Ed Green on percussion and violin. I say violin because they cover Nights in White Satin as well, and it's killer. I mean, pretty close to the original, but they do venture away at times. So they make it their own song. They being Ramsey Lewis and these guys. But I've gushed about this album. I'm gonna go back and listen to some of Ramsey Lewis' previous work, and I'm gonna try to find some more Cleveland Eaton stuff because oh, he's a good bassist. So I mean, I think bassists a lot of times get underrated. Obviously, I like to play the bass a little bit, so I'm gonna hear it more, maybe more so than others. And I do focus in on the drums and percussion and that sort of thing. A lot of times, this is an album for that. All these artists, I think, at this time were at the top of their game. Even though Ramsey Lewis, like I said, had mainly his hits were in the '60s. I think the late '60s. This one does not need to be like missed. This one needs to be like listened to, and I would probably buy this on vinyl, especially if I can hear that bass on it like that, and the like Nights in White Satin. It's pretty. It's really pretty. So this one was a pleasant surprise. It made me want to listen to more Ramsey Lewis, and I can't really say much more about it other than this is 4.5 stars. So Yeah, 4.5. And it's amazing for me to give a jazz album, other than like a Chick Corea, you know, I gave it the half star production bump as well, because this is quality. No vocals, so if you're not into just music, you're probably not gonna like it. But I really did. I really liked it, and I highly recommend it. It's one of the best jazz albums I think that I may have listened to. And I don't have a extensive jazz listening career. Mostly 70s. But it's definitely one of the best from 70 to now, 73 that we're reviewing, that I've reviewed. So yeah, very exciting. Yeah, I was excited, and I will go back and listen to it, like especially like Nights in White Satin, and two or three of the tracks I will for sure pick out. Like I said before, I'm trying to make a Chord Chronicles Spotify playlist best of. This is going to be the background noise episode, guys, as I'm interrupted by a plane that I hope is still in the sky. Sounds really low.
I even
I,
heard that.
I heard he. Well, did you hear the birds? Like this one
Us.
bird's. He must have felt like making love, or it's in the air. He knew Ramsey Lewis was coming up. So this is the background noise. I'm going to try to edit it out, but it's probably not going to make it out. So everyone's going to hear the planes, and they're going to hear birds chirping. So please forgive me for that, but it is that kind of day. It's been that kind of week. But yeah, 4.5 stars. Highly recommend Ramsey Lewis, Funky Serenity, and his other stuff. Even though I haven't heard it, I can tell you right now, tremendously talented. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about it, other than check it out. And
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
I am
yeah,
definitely gonna have to go check that out because for you to give 4.5 stars to a jazz album is almost unheard of, so it must be really good. And I'm really intrigued by that Nights in White Satin. I'm definitely gonna have to look for that one.
it is jazz. It's funk. I think having that little element of funk soul in it, it just pushes it over the top. It's good. I'm excited about Ramsey Lewis. So yeah, I'm a big fan. Now, the next album that we're both going to talk about is totally not Ramsey Lewis. We're doing a complete 180 because the next artist, this album came out February 25th, 1973. Oh my gosh. Like I said, we already knew about the Temptations, and we obviously know about Alice Cooper. This is Billion Dollar Babies. I already knew about this album. I mean, this is already. I think this is probably Alice Cooper's most what I don't know if it's his most listened to, but this is it's probably his most highly regarded album, and it probably his probably most successful. I would say. I don't
I don't
know.
know. 1972 might be the most successful.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't know. But anyway, the album cover really crazy looking. It looks like snakeskin. I want to see it actually in vinyl, like on a vinyl, and like just see if what it actually looks like. But the picture is all I've seen, and it looks really cool. This is what Alice's sixth studio album. We did miss the 72, but um, I mean, oh, this is a mixture. This album is like a mix. There's not really one sound. That's the only drawback I would give it. A lot of times I would give that as a drawback, but it doesn't really hurt the album so much. A lot of a lot of the themes and subjects on this album are just fear, like different things you might be afraid of, and a lot of it's tongue in cheek. I mean, some of it may not be right in this day and age to make fun of or make light of. I will say that.
It's
Um,
uncomfortable.
yeah, they're uncomfortable. I mean, there's like one song on here that I will bring out, but interestingly enough, though, okay, the album opens up with the song "Hello, Hooray." Do you know who originally sang that song?
I do, but I don't
Yeah,
know if our listeners do.
I could not believe it was a Judy Collins song because I already reviewed Judy Collins. Oh my gosh, Alice Cooper did a lot better job. I'm gonna say. Yeah, I liked it a lot better. I'll say that. Oh, great song. It has that classic Alice Cooper sound. I don't know how just any other way to put it. He just made I don't know. His voice has that acidic quality to it. He's trying to be sinister, and it works. It's like a Svengoolie thing. It's not scary, and it's like a theatrical thing. That's the way I would term it. So, Hello Hooray, a great track to open the album with, I thought. And then, like I said, don't take it serious, everyone. Please. We have Raped and Freezing. It's about sexual harassment. Is what it is. It's about sexual harassment, the basic theme. They're not making light of it, but it is the fear and that stuff. It's a good track. I liked it. Um, I don't guess I really need to go track by track through it, but I just wanted to highlight a few. I thought Elected was not my favorite on the album. I think his voice is just like I said. There are times I really like Alice's voice, but there are other times where it's just too much. She's projecting too much in Elected, I think, and it's just atonal. I don't know. It's just there's something not right. It just does not work for me. And I don't like the song Elected. There are I don't think I mentioned it. There are like four singles. I think there were like four singles from this album. So I don't have that right in front of me. So, but I think Billion Dollar Babies, No More Mr. Nice Guy, Hello Hooray, and maybe Elected. I think Elected was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
So I just don't not a fan of that Elected one. But Billion Dollar Babies, I like it and I don't like it. There are a couple parts of it where it's busy, where there's so like I think I don't know if it's Alice doing a spoken thing and somebody singing at the same time, but if they're like speaking over one another at two or three times on the song. I didn't like that, but I do like Billion Dollar Babies, and I just it's funny. It's that song. I think they're referencing how they didn't expect such success, and now they're billion dollar babies. Is what they are. They're like, yeah, look at us. So that's what I take from that. All right, the last song on side one, I wanted to highlight because I'm just gonna say it pissed me off. It's about the fear of dentistry. Haha, getting ready to go into the dentist here pretty soon. Maybe that's what it is, but no, that's not what it is. The dentist doesn't scare me, but the high pitched, piercing, skull piercing dental drill sound that they use in that's an automatic skip for me. I listened to that song once and was like, man, that's it. I'm trying to keep it PG. I'm not gonna say what I said. So, yeah, that one just irritated me. I don't like that. I was irritated at Alice Cooper for that. So, but then you open up side two of the album with No More Mr. Nice Guy. All was forgiven. Love podcast, everyone. No More Mr. Nice Guy used to be the theme for my favorite podcast, other than Chord Chronicles, obviously. But the Jim Cornette experience is something that I just listen to every week. I just like his sense of humor, and he doesn't take things so seriously. Just a Louisville guy, so a little bit close to home. But this isn't a Jim Cornette thing, but he used No More Mr. Nice Guy, so every time now that I hear the song, that's the first association that I hear. So that was kind of funny. And then I don't really want to go through many of the other songs. I don't think a lot of the other songs stand out. I thought I Love the Dead was funny because it's just tongue in cheek talking about necrophilia. So, haha. So, but I don't know. It's if you are a fan of Alice Cooper, you're gonna like this album. This is one of the big ones. I don't think I did go through the personnel. I will real fast, and then I'll turn it over to you because I think I've once again droned on long enough. But you have Alice Cooper on vocals and harmonica, Glenn Buxton on guitar, and Michael Bruce on guitar, keyboards, and backing vocals. And the two guitarists on this album, killer. Oh, smoking. Yeah, I don't know which of the I think it's maybe Glenn Buxton on the lead taking the lead on Billion Dollar Babies. There's some really nice guitar work in that. And then you have Dennis Dunaway on bass and backing vocals. And then finally Neil Smith, drums and backing vocals. And they're considered the Alice Cooper group, I guess, at this time. It's not just Alice. They're not just going by Alice Cooper, I guess. They just dropped the group thing later. And one other thing I will point out, I mean, there are a few like additional personnel as we have the garbage truck going through. Yet another background sound. Donovan, an artist that I think you reviewed his album, and then we had Donovan on. He has vocals on Billion Dollar Babies. I think does he do the falsetto or whatever that is?
I'm not sure.
It's
But
funny.
we've got one of his albums coming up in 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks, so we're gonna get to hear more of him.
Oh my goodness! Once again, background episode, background noise episode, guys. But there are quite a few different different people involved with the album, but I'm not going to go through the list. Once again, you can find it on Wikipedia and go through that as well if you want to get as in depth as that. If you so desire. But really, that's all I have to say. I probably have said too much about Billion Dollar Babies, but yeah, I really liked it, except for the dental song. That song you just cut it out. I always cut it out of the playlist now. Even when I pull up the album, I just go ahead and remove it. So, but I have listened to this album quite a few times. But I'm gonna turn it over to you. What do you think about Billion Dollar Babies?
Well, obviously, like you said, I know Alice Cooper. I gotta throw that out there right off. I have known of him/them for, I don't know, I guess as long as I can remember. We did review them back in 71, I think, or, well, actually 2021 for the 1971 album. I think that was a positive review, if I remember correctly. We did miss reviewing School's Out last year, but I own that one, so I've heard that album as well. I liked it well enough to purchase it. It's a really cool album design, by the way. This one is as well. We don't have it, but this is one that's on our list that we want to buy if we can ever find it. So, they do a really good job on their album design. They design some cool albums. School's Out looks like a school disc. The legs fold down. This one is supposed to look like a snakeskin wallet. It's got a folded $1 billion bill inside. Very creative, very cool. This album in particular, I didn't know the album per se, but I do know and like some of the songs already. I actually really like Elected. I already knew that song. And that one is one of my favorite Alice Cooper songs, along with No More Mr. Nice Guy, of course. Those are two of my top 3 favorite Alice Cooper songs, along with Poison, School's Out, and I'm 18. That fell out the rest of the top 5, in case you were wondering. So, the point is, I knew that I was most likely going to enjoy this album pretty well, and that I was probably going to rate it fairly highly with those 2 songs on it. But who really knows until the rest of it's reviewed? As it turns out, for me, those were the best 2 songs on the album. But the rest was pretty good too. The guitar was great. I really liked it, especially in Billion Dollar Babies, like you said. That one was a single, but it was not one that I was familiar with. So I didn't know that Donovan sang on that track until after I listened, since I didn't know the song yet. But I did make a note of that because we do have a Donovan album coming up in just a couple of weeks. And I did review, we all know some Donovan songs. Season of the Witch, I believe, is Donovan. Good song. But, yeah, we're going to get to hear more of him. I didn't hate Unfinished Sweet as much as you did. It's not my favorite song on the album, but the drill didn't hurt me as much as you might expect, and I thought the percussion in it was really good. The drumming was particularly effective in that one, and the sound effects, they were effective. I mean, sorry, I know you do have to go to the dentist this week. Maybe it wasn't a great time to have to listen to that one. No, I'm no more scared of the dentist than any other medical thing. But it is a good horror topic. A lot of people are scared of the dentist, so it is effective. And I didn't even actually pick up on this, but Luke did, and he mentioned it after the fact. There's a line in that song that mentions, I'm still seeing spies, and right before that, there's a musical interlude that is spy music. So, yeah. I don't know how I missed that. He picked up on it. I'm gonna have to go back and maybe listen to it again because that's kind of cool. But it wasn't my favorite song on the album either. I just didn't hate it as much as you. Generation Landslide, that one surprised me. It heavily features harmonica. Doesn't normally fit with this style of music, but I liked it. That kind of surprise, that's fun. And it worked. It wasn't like overly jarring or anything like that. It was just kind of unexpected. This was just a good album. I'm not saying it's 5 stars. I'm also not saying it isn't. Not yet. Stars are still gonna have to wait a minute. But I did think that it was really good. And some people enjoyed it. Now, Rolling Stone magazine, they rated this 2.5 stars. So I had to bring that up because that's just dumb and wrong. I'm assuming it's probably because there is some disturbing content and themes, like you said, rape, necrophilia, sick things. That's even the title of one of the tracks. But it's shock rock. It doesn't bother me. These are songs. I don't have to be a necrophiliac to listen and enjoy this album. I doubt any of the band members are necrophiliacs either. It's an act. It's just their form of art. I mean, it's actually kind of silly. I will say that. But that's okay. Although, No More Mr. Nice Guy, that one actually is kind of autobiographical and talks about just that kind of reaction that I'm sure some people had about this album and others by Alice Cooper, and how unfair and wrong it is. People judged them and their families, like Alice Cooper's parents, got some backlash from his work with their church people. And that's wrong. But, so I agree. No more Mr. Nice Guy. But anyway, we're not the only ones who did like the album. Other reviewers did rate it well. It hit #1 on the charts. The tour broke records. It sounds like it was a really fun show to be at. I wish I could have seen it. This was the famous, Alice getting his head cut off with a guillotine tour. Chris Cornell, we both loved him. He said that this was one of his favorite records, and David Byrne said it inspired Psycho Killer for the Talking Heads. It's another great song. So, yeah, it's a good album. I don't have anything else to say except for my stars, and I think I'm going to wait and let you give yours first, and then I'll give mine.
You're waiting to see if I give it 4 or 4.5, aren't you?
No, I already know what my score is, whether yours is accurate or not.
Mine's 4. It's 4 stars. It's a good album. It's not like the best Alice Cooper. I think probably School's Out is the best album. That being said, I still do want this. I want the the vinyl, the LP. An original would be nice, but we'll see. I think it'd be hard to get one in good condition. Because people that bought this probably listened to it a lot. I would think. Because a lot of these songs do kind of, they become earworm in a way. Like they'll get in there. I mean, he's a good writer. I think Sick Things was the other song that I didn't like, though. It's just almost like a spoken thing. And they chant behind it a little bit or something. It just wasn't, that one wasn't my favorite. I thought that one was a little weak, but that's why I gave it 4 stars. There are a couple songs on there that I think aren't great. Like I said, that drill song is just, it's got to go. I get it. You wanting to give someone the fear of the dentist or whatever, but don't put that drill sound in it. Or don't make it quite so like sharp. I mean, I was listening in headphones loud because I'm trying to experience all this stuff. This was one, it just I almost had to turn it off for a while. Like, man, don't be doing that kind of stuff. But other than that, yeah, 4 stars from me. So what did you give it?
I think that's fair. I also considered 4 stars for this one, and I thought of it and then forgot to mention it. that you listen in headphones. That might be why the drill sound wasn't as piercing for me, because it wasn't right there in my head. I was listening in the room, and it kind of subdued it a little more. You know, so the singles that I already knew were the best songs on the album, I thought. Those are the ones I will most likely listen to again. And there were 2 of those, but just 2. So I don't want to be too generous, just because I already love those songs. There was a little bit of filler on here. I will be honest and say that. But I did ultimately decide 4 stars was a little too low. I didn't love the rest quite as much as those 2. It was a good album throughout, and those 2 really are great. To me. I know you didn't care for Elected, but I love that song. And no more Mr. Nice Guys, just... I don't know if I can adequately even express how much I love that song. So, no, it's not 5 stars, but it's also not 4 for me. I will possibly listen to the album again, even if not the whole thing. I'm definitely going to listen to multiple songs. At least the 2 I've already mentioned, maybe more. It's highly recommended. I gave $1 Billion Babies 4.5.
It was good. I can see that point as well, but just wasn't my favorite. But that doesn't mean it's not a good album. So yeah, everyone be sure to check out Alice Cooper's $1 Billion Babies. And you know what? I'm gonna hang back for a minute, and I'm gonna let you take the lead on the next album, and see what you thought about it first, before I drone on some more about it. So yeah, I'm gonna let you talk about the next album, because everyone will see why in a minute.
Yeah, I can do that. I can absolutely do that. Our next album is a guy that we are both familiar with, but especially me. It's Dr. John. The album is In the Right Place, and it also came out on February 25th. We have talked about Dr. John before on the show. I know I do like him more than you do. Obviously, there's the New Orleans connection. I am predisposed to enjoy that, I guess, because I love everything New Orleans. Well, that's not true. I don't love everything New Orleans. Bourbon Street. Ugh. But
Yeah, it's pretty dirty.
but I do like a lot about New Orleans. I love the town. But I really do like Dr. John, too. His voice can be polarizing, I will admit that. I'm not even going to say it's a good voice, but it is authentic. And he's just darn catchy. The title track to this album is a good example of that. Well, it's kind of a title track. The album is obviously named for the song, but it's not an exact match, I will say that. The album is titled In the Right Place. The song is Right Place, Wrong Time. It's a great song. It's popular, and for a reason. Most of our listeners, you probably do already know that song. You may not even realize that you know it, but it's a good song. I've enjoyed it for years, even before I was familiar with Dr. John. I didn't know much about the rest of the album before I listened to it this week, though. I did look at the personnel list before I listened, just so I could get a good start on my notes, write my intro. I try to do that ahead of time, and then just focus on the music. Personnel list was extra exciting for me. You've got Mac Rebenek, that's Dr. John. He, of course, does vocals and a lot of piano type stuff. That's his instrument. But Alan Toussaint also does a little of everything on here. He's another fantastic New Orleans artist, and he was involved in the production as well. And the Meters. They're a New Orleans band that I reviewed with surprisingly great results back in, I think it was 2020. Might have been 2021, but I think it was 2020 for their 1970 album. They're on here too as sort of a backing band. So after I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be good. I was really excited. Album does kick off with that song that we all know, the one I'm calling the title track. It was a great way to start. I don't I can't even explain what I love about that song. I don't really know how to say it. It's just a really good song. I love the the ooh at the end of the chorus. You I don't know. I don't know what to say. Just go listen to it. It's a good song. And really good guitar in it too. I've never really paid a whole lot of attention to the guitar in it before now because I wasn't listening with a reviewer's ear. I was just listening. But I noticed it this time more than I normally do. I think that was David Spinoza. I saw that name on the personnel list. I had to look him up. Now I can't talk. I had to look him up because I wasn't familiar with him, but he worked with a ton of really great artists as either a guitarist or producer. I'm not gonna list who because it's like everybody, but he seems to be really talented, and it definitely showed in, on this album. I liked Just the Same, too. It was a slower ballad. I really loved the organ in it. It sounded like Dr. John, but it was heavy on the more R&B slow jam type stuff. Love me some slow jams. So, that was good. And Traveling Mood, that was the other song that I wanted to mention specifically. That one was really catchy. It is classic New Orleans jazz, great piano, great horns. That was the Bonnaroo horn section. I wasn't familiar with them, and I couldn't find a whole lot about them, but let's be honest, horns are literally everywhere in New Orleans. You can pull a group off of just about any street corner, especially in the French Quarter. What they're playing will probably sound quite a bit like this, but this group was particularly talented. I did find a little bit about them after I started researching. They were a group that was kind of created for studio work. They were named by Dr. John. It's a Cajun word that means the best there is. They did work with some other big artists as well, but it seems like, as far as I can tell, this was their first. Also, I don't want to get ahead of us too much, but Dr. John's next album, that I think was 74, it's named Decidedly Bonnaroo. And as far as I can tell, it's hard to find a list of horn section members, but as far as I can tell, they were on that one as well. And the Bonnaroo Music Festival in Tennessee, if you're familiar with that, was named after that album. So it was named by Dr. John, and so was the horn section, and it's all connected. But that is a tangent. We can talk more about that next year when we review that album. Back to the song, Traveling Mood. It was one of only 2 songs on the album that Dr. John didn't at least co-write. The other one, Life, was written by Alan Toussaint. Traveling Mood was by James Waynes, though. I didn't know him either. Also looked him up. He was a Texas/Louisiana R&B musician. He worked in the 50s and 60s primarily. It's actually a really interesting and a sad story. I'm not going to go too far into it, but I would recommend you look it up because, wow. At the time of this album, he was in a mental hospital for paranoid schizophrenia after throwing a Molotov cocktail at a hotel because he thought the clerk was after him, was part of the mafia. So, he was arrested for arson and eventually put in a mental hospital for schizophrenia. And that's where he was for 7 years, from like 67 to 74. So when this album came out, he didn't even know it. It's a great song, though. Yeah, I assume he recorded it. I should have looked into that a little more, but I didn't. I'm sorry. But I will look into that and see if he recorded it and compare his. But for now, the one I'm reviewing is the one on this album by Dr. John, and it was really catchy. Really good. It was a good album as a whole. There were some filler tracks, but there are also some that were really good. And of course, like I said, the title track is fantastic. don't really have anything else to say about it other than my star rating, so I'm gonna let you talk about it first, and then we'll give our stars.
Well, I've already disparaged Dr. John before, so I like Dr. John. I just always think of him as the Muppet almost. He's like Dr. Teeth and the Medicine Band, or
Oh,
whatever it's
he
called.
definitely is.
Yeah. So it's not that I don't like him, but I always see that cartoon. So, I'm gonna say maybe I don't take him serious. It's not that. It's just it's almost like that for me. It becomes that. But I'm trying not to say that being said. But that being said, if you're gonna pick up a Dr. John album, this is the one. Other than a greatest hits album or something like that, this is the one. I love this album actually. This if I'm gonna pick up Dr. John and listen to it, this is gonna be this one. Right place, wrong time. I was already familiar with that song. Um, I think it's same old. That has it's a New Orleans sound, obviously, but I like the trombone in it or something. They have like it just has that as I annoy everyone with that, but it just has a nice a nice sound. Now, but my favorite song on the album is called it's I've Been Hoodooed. That
Yeah.
song is audio fire. That's what it evokes if you're trying to like evoke images. It is like
That
fire.
song.
Yeah, that song. It is like audio fire. It's all it is. It just is a fire out of control. That's all. When you listen back to it now, and you like and think about that and see what you think. But I don't want to bring up any of the other songs you've already talked, and given more information than I could ever about Dr. John. But as an amateur listener of Dr. John, this is his best album, and this one's 4.5 stars. So, what did you give it?
I am glad that you liked it. I've been telling you he is good. Now you finally see it. No, I was really happy that I wasn't disappointed in this album. I still love Dr. John. You actually rated this one higher than me, though. I gave this one 4 stars. But it is a great album, and it is his best, probably.
The production in it's excellent as well. That's why it got the half star. So, yeah, I thought it was awesome. Like it's a really fun, good album to put on. His vocals fit on this. I think Alan Toussaint being the producer helps because I think Alan Toussaint's probably heavily involved with the music aspect of this, and then Dr. John's bringing the vocals and the he wrote all the stuff, the lyrics and this and that. I mean, they all came together and collabed, obviously, but I feel like Alan Toussaint probably pushed this over the top.
Alan Toussaint was a genius.
Yeah, I think that's what did it for me. But the next album that you're going to talk about, I actually peeked behind the curtain and listened to last night because I like to try to listen to all of them anyway because that's just my, you know, it's just my thing. But I actually have listened to this album, but I'm anxious to see what you think about it because we're already familiar with this band in all the wrong ways, I would say. So,
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Um, and this was the only one that we didn't have an actual release date for. We just know it came out sometime in February. The only one for this week, that is. But my solo album, my Amy's All Alone, for this week, or Amy's. I don't remember. Amy's always awesome, since I'm not alone anymore. No, anyway, album is Fairport Convention, Rosie. I'm not gonna lie, I was not excited about listening to this one. I know you weren't excited about having a jazz album either, though, and that worked out really well for you. You know, but we have listened to some Fairport Convention in the past, and it was less than exciting. But sometimes that happens. We have to listen to stuff and give it a fair review, even if the previous work has been not great. Not anything to get really enthusiastic about. And this is British folk, which isn't my favorite, but again, fair review. I'm not just reviewing the stuff I already like for this show. That would be silly and pointless. The whole point of the show is to listen and discover new stuff. So, I had to listen to Rosie. The title track did have a couple of semi-sour notes to my uneducated and ultra-sensitive ear. That's not a technical thing I'm saying. They may not be wrong notes at all. They just don't sound good to me. They make me cringe. It wasn't that bad, though. It was a lot better than I was afraid it was gonna be. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That's the name of the song. I'm not just naming books of the Bible. The song Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John was kind of catchy. The lead singer on at least a couple of the songs, I wrote down Knights of the Road and The Plainsmen. That singer, I'm not sure who it was because there are 3 male singers on here and it doesn't specify on the pages I was looking at, it doesn't specify who sang on which songs, but it reminded me of Gordon Lightfoot. Just the voice, not the song itself, but it had a similar tone to the voice. He has a really rich, deep-ish voice, really pretty, and that's what this sounded like. I really liked the sound of the vocals in those. Me With You kind of reminded me a little bit of the Beatles in their more fun, novelty-type songs. And I know we get tired of the Beatles, especially you, because it's the Beatles. They're everywhere. But I mean that is a good thing. It was fun and it just kind of had that sound. And Hungarian Rhapsody. That one also reminded me of something else, something older. It's not, Hungarian Rhapsody is an actual thing. It's actually, I looked it up. There are 19 Hungarian Rhapsodies by Liszt, the classical composer. It's not that, but it reminded me of something like maybe by Herman's Hermits. Actually, it was really reminiscent of them to me. And it was pretty catchy and made me want goulash. Like, a lot. I love goulash, and it mentioned goulash, and now I'm gonna have to go get some Hungarian goulash. Or maybe I just really like food, or maybe I'm hungry. I don't know. Could be any or all of the above. I don't have a ton to say about it, but most of the album was pretty catchy. Surprisingly so. Pleasantly so. I don't know that there's anything on it that I'm gonna come back and listen to again. It's not that kind of album for me. I know, I know that you did especially like a couple of songs. Yeah, we talked about it ahead of time, guys, but I didn't tell him what I thought. He just told me what he thought. I know you really like the instrumentals. Peggy's Pub, and I don't have the title of the other one written down. It was longish title, something about hens.
Yeah, the hen, whatever. Yeah, I can't remember. It was good.
Yeah, I know you really like those, and you said you may go back and listen to those again. I may not listen to any of these tracks again, but I don't really have anything bad to say about any of them, or the album at all. It's not even boring. Like, I was expecting it to be boring at best. I wasn't up and dancing or anything, but I think I enjoyed every song on here at least a little bit. So, this was a 3.5-star album for me. That is much higher than I expected. Okay, it's not the best of the week, but just because this was a good week. I mean, it's tied with The Temptations. And I thought this was going to be a 3 at best, maybe even lower. That's what I was afraid of. But it was a happy surprise for me. So, 3.5 stars for Fairport Convention. So, what would you have given it?
Well, I was pleasantly surprised about it as well, because once again, I have listened to the other Fairport convention stuff, and I don't know, it was like the other stuff was like foreign bluegrass in some ways. Yeah, I can say it's not as they don't get down country style as much as like bluegrass. They're not fiddling it up that much, but that's the way I would term it at times. But it just wasn't. Nothing stood out. It wasn't necessarily bad. It was just kind of like okay, it's all right. I think maybe they're about. I think we gave them 3 stars. Maybe I may have been involved with an album. I think that's the highest that we've ever seen like a Fairport convention album for our ears at least. But I probably would have given it 3.5. I probably would have given it 3.5 as well. It might creep up. It might creep up 3 and 3/4 if we gave 3/4 stars, just because I think those two instrumentals, they really I don't know. They really like kind of gave it. They injected some energy into the album, and I liked. Like you said that the singer that sounded like Gordon Lightfoot. I thought so as well, and I like the background vocals as well. There are a couple. I think there may have been one song I didn't like. Maybe the lead vocal on. It's I don't remember. Like I said, I don't have any of that in front of me because it wasn't my solo, but I thought the album was surprisingly pretty good. Pretty good. Like I would say this is the Fairpoint Convention album to check out if you're wanting to check out Fairpoint Convention, and then maybe go back and listen to their older stuff. From what I've heard, people say that the two instrumental tracks are closer to their older stuff, but I not from any of the stuff I heard. I just liked them.
I was just gonna say, I think it's probably because those were traditionals that they just reworked and performed instead of actually being written by the band.
Yeah, it could have been. I don't know. I don't know. I enjoyed those. I thought they were fun though. A lot. It
They
was
were.
actually well. It was better for me than the next album, the last album of the week that we're going to talk about. I mean, there are a lot of times that we are already familiar with someone's work. It may not be their actual like singing and like playing the music themselves work. It may just be they produced numerous albums, or involved in the background, or wrote the songs, like wrote all the lyrics. Well, the artist we're getting ready to talk about was that artist, John Cale. This is Paris 1919, and what John Cale was involved with Velvet Underground
Yes.
with Lou Reed. I
Mm-hmm.
I don't like Velvet Underground really. It's never really hit with me. It's okay. I mean, Walk on the Wild Side. It's a little bit offensive, but I mean, I always that song's okay. Sampled on Love You Marky Mark. But but really more than anything though, I was familiar with John Cale as a producer, similar along the same lines as like a Chris Christopherson. I know that's a weird comparison to make, but Chris Christopherson's enormously talented, excellent writer, a good actor as well. I don't know what John Cale did that, but uh, just a good writer and producer. But when he gets in front of the microphone, I just don't want to hear him sing. I just don't love it. John Cale, I don't love his singing. His vocals most of the time take me out of the actual music, because the music and the lyrics themselves are good. Like I feel like his lyrics are poetry. If you actually sit down and read his John Cale's lyrics, like a lot of times they are poetic, and I'll give it that. And maybe that's what it is. I'm reviewing it from a just enjoyment standpoint. Maybe I don't need to, but that was my approach this week for a lot of the albums, and maybe I need to be a little bit more, I need to look into it a little deeper. But I could not get into this album at all. I I think the best song on the album probably is Macbeth. It's the last song on side one. It's because they pick up the energy a little bit. For me, I think probably fans of like Radiohead, like that Tom York drone, just that real subdued. Like if you're into that sort of style of singing or that kind of thing, you're gonna like most of the songs on this album because that's John Cale's style for the most part on this album. Now I know he does many things, but this album in particular for me it was just a bit of a drone. Um, I didn't even look and see honestly what the singles were. I'm assuming Paris 1919 was one of the singles on the album because title track or whatever. But I don't know. I don't have much more to say. It's pop, baroque pop, I think, and I think maybe that's part of it. I don't like the British that baroque style pop. Anytime we've had that, it just doesn't hit to me. Um, I did like Macbeth, like I said, and I think it might have been Graham Greene was the other song that I thought was okay. It's not great for me, and I'm sure this just sometimes they just don't hit. You know, sometimes they just don't hit. And the personnel, though, I was already familiar with a couple of the artists. John Cale, obviously vocals, piano, keyboards, viola, and acoustic guitar. Lowell George, the other artist I'm already familiar with, electric guitar and acoustic guitar. And Wilton Felder on bass guitar and sax. Richie Hayward on drums, another artist I've already seen before. Chris Thomas on tambourine. I'm surprised they just threw him on there. But Richie Hayward was with Little Feat, I think. There's so much music. It just all blends together. But yeah, I think he's with them. And one thing I will say about Wilton Felder, he played bass on the Jackson 5 hits I Want You Back, ABC, and then on Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On. So the talent on this album is excellent and the production's pretty good. It just wasn't an album for me, I think. So it was a drone to get through at times. The strings are really nice at times that they put in the background. I don't know. And I think maybe the producer of this album previously worked with the band you have reviewed, Procol Harum. I think you had that album. I've listened to it, but I don't think I gave a review on Procol Harum yet. But yeah, I don't have anything else to add about Paris 1919. It was hard for me to make it through it. I tried numerous times to get through it. It may have been because I kept getting interrupted by Jose, my friend. We call him Boco Motora because he's a motor mouth. He knows this. Love you, Jose, if you're listening still. But don't listen to Paris 1919. You're not going to like it, Jose, at least. So, everyone else, hey, uh, you know, production, excellent. Vocals, not so excellent. The vocals are the weakest thing on this album, and it almost took me out of it. But I don't have anything else other to add, other than just being just so negative about the album that's actually pretty good, that everyone seems to love. But what did you think about John Cale's Paris 1919?
Well, first of all, I will say there don't seem to be any singles off of the album. You know, at least there's none listed on Wikipedia, and it may just be he's not really a singles type of guy.
Yeah, it's not that good.
Sounds a little more romantic or aromantic than I meant.
It's not worthy. It's not worthy of singles. That's what it is. No, you have to take it.
No,
you have to take this album as a whole and put it in the ground. So no, go ahead.
Oh, hush. His lyrics are poetry. They are artistic. They're a little over my head. I feel no shame in saying that. And the words are kind of weird in some songs. Like, okay, if you listen to slightly more modern songs, Red Hot Chili Peppers, the lyrics are kind of nonsense sometimes. This kind of comes across as nonsense as well. It's not, it is poetry, but, like, I'm just gonna read the first part of Child's Christmas in Wales. With mistletoe and candle green to Halloween we go. 10 murdered oranges bled on board ship lends comedy to shame. Okay, whatever. But, you know, musically, I thought it was pretty good. I don't necessarily need the lyrics to be easy to understand as long as they don't sound bad. I love Red Hot Chili Peppers and Nirvana, absolute nonsense, but it's still good. I didn't love this as much as I love those. I don't want to give that impression. I love Nirvana, love Chili Peppers. But I did like this okay. I didn't mind his voice as much as you did. It's not the best or the prettiest, but it was okay for me. Musically, the album was pretty calm, I guess you could say, for the first half or so, except for a couple of songs. Side B was a little more lively, except for a song or two, but most of Side A was a little soft, so I can see it being a little hard to get through, especially if you weren't in the right frame of mind for it. It could be a little sleepy. It's not really calm in theme necessarily, but in sound. The album title refers to the peace talks that they may have settled World War One, but it also helped lead to Hitler and World War Two. Not exactly the happiest or the easiest topic, but I thought it sounded pretty good. John Cale himself called this album an example of the nicest ways of saying something ugly. I can definitely see that as being an accurate assessment. It didn't sound angry or mean or even very strong on any emotion except maybe sadness. But
or boredom.
No, it was quiet, but yeah, there is definitely something he was going for, and it doesn't, it's not happy, it's not pleasant, but it might sound calm or happy. Like the title song, it's the beginning of Side B. It was one of the ones that was a little more lively, not as soft or as calm. It's not erratic, it's not hard rock at all, it's still soft rock, but it was a little more energetic than some of the others. And it did kind of have a happy sound, even though the topic is not at all. And I should mention that I was already familiar with that song. Luke loves it, he loves this album. And that song is on his playlist, so I hear it fairly often, and I like it pretty well. It is probably my favorite off of the album. It's kind of catchy. I also wanted to mention that, the musicians on the album are very accomplished. They're very talented, and they're well known as such, so yeah, the music is good. Like you said, John Cale himself, he was with the Velvet Underground. He produced for lots of other great bands like the Stooges and Patti Smith, and he does a lot on the album. You listed what he did. It's not just several instruments, but they're also very different instruments. Piano, guitar, viola. I guess they're all strings, but playing the piano is not the same as the guitar, which is not at all the same as playing a viola. Those are very different. You've already talked about Wilton Felder, I Want You Back, ABC, Let's Get It On, all great songs, so great bassist. Lowell George and Richie Hayward from Little Feat. The UCLA Symphony Orchestra plays some strings on here. I think you mentioned the strings being really good. And like you said, Chris Thomas on tambourine. I did look him up because I didn't know that name. He's not really known as a musician, but he is a well-known producer. He was actually invited to play bass with Jimi Hendrix, though, so he's probably alright at playing, too. It's just not what he wanted to go into. But that's not really about the album specifically, at least not a review of the album, but I did want to mention all of that. It does have an impact on the album. As far as the title song, Paris 1919, Luke mentioned that it sounded to him like it could have been a Beatles song. And I could see that, or hear it whatever. I would say that is a valid thought. Again, we do tend to get burnt out on Beatles stuff. Me less than you, but yeah, I can kind of see that kind of feel to it. I did like Graham Greene. There was a xylophone or something in the background. It was kind of subtle, but I really enjoyed it. It's not on the personnel list or the instrument list unless it's in the orchestra, but I didn't pick up on a lot of orchestral stuff in Graham Greene other than that. But I did hear that little chimey xylophone type of sound in listening. I really liked it. And I did also want to mention the bass in Half Past France. I guess that was Wilton Felder. And it was good. It was really good. And I know you like bass. It's a little harder for me to hear the bass on a lot of songs. It tends to be a little more in the background, and it's just harder for my ear to pick it out. But it did stand out in that song, and it was really enjoyable. So I wanted to mention that one. I don't think I'm gonna go back to any of these songs individually. I'm definitely gonna hear Paris 1919 again since Luke loves it so much and it's on his playlist. But I don't think any of them will end up on my playlist. But I did actually think the album was pretty good throughout. So I'm still gonna rate it highly. Fairly highly, anyway. But I want to hear your stars before I give mine, because I feel like mine might be higher than yours, but I don't know. Maybe you'll surprise me.
No surprise. 3.5 stars. That's it. And that's me being nice.
Well, I was right. I am going to rate it higher than you. But I was between 3.5 and 4. I felt like 3.5 was just a little too low for me, but I don't know that it's really a 4-star, so I'm kind of glad you gave it 3.5, because I feel like 3 3/4 is fair. And I gave it 4, so our combined score is going to be 3 3/4.
Initially, I gave it 2.5.
Well, I'm glad you went and listened to it again. 2.5 is too low. It is better than that.
2.5 for the vocals.
It wasn't bad. I hate that you hated it so much.
That's about right. That's the vocals. They drone on so much. That's the problem with it. And then it picks up like too late. It's like, man, you've droned on for so long now, and I get it. It's poetry, but it's hard. It's a hard album to make it through. As an album overall, I just can't do it. So I'll never listen to this again. Never. I'm not looking forward to any more John Cale, and I'm going to argue vigorously with Luke about his reviews. I can already see this.
Well, that's fine. No, I agree. It was a little
you,
sleepy. It was, if you were already tired, this would not be the album to listen to because you may not make it through side A. I agree with that. But his voice didn't bother me. It was just very calm.
If you were already tired, if you like good vocals, I mean, there are a few things, but nah, I don't know. It's funny that you mentioned Luke, though, because next week is a big episode. All kinds of things. Don't go back and check, because trust me on this, unless you want to go back and count 100 episodes, or 99. This is our 99th episode right now, guys, because next week, this will be our 100th recorded. I don't want to say recorded. Maybe we've missed a couple. Who knows? We're going to say next week, though, is our 100th podcast episode, because it will be our 100th set of reviews. So this is episode 100. Yeah, woo, we made it to 100. Have you listened to everything yet, guys? If not, get busy.
Why not?
Get busy. Because you still have these albums, to listen to next week too. So you're gonna be busy.
But next week is a good one to be our 100th episode.
Yes, it is. It couldn't have fallen on a nicer week. Well, maybe, but it's pretty nice, because next week we have one of the gayest re-releases. Oh no, that's just people up in arms about the
That's just
prism.
people being stupid.
No, yeah. We have March 1st, 1973, Pink Floyd, The Dark Side of the Moon. Oh my gosh, I could talk about that album right now. I've already listened to this album so many times. I
You
may get,
can't see me, but I'm doing the Kermit flail. Like,
yeah,
oh my
I
god.
may, I may get the 50th anniversary. I don't know. We'll see. As I'm
Whoa.
dropping everything all over the floor. But we do have Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. We also have Foghat, Rock and Roll. I don't know if that's going to be good, honestly, though, because we've listened to a lot of Foghat, and we've already listened to Slow Ride. We had Slow Ride already, so I don't know about that one. So that may dip down a little bit, but we're going to come right back up because March the 2nd, we had Todd Rundgren, A Wizard, A True Star. I'm already a huge fan of Todd Rundgren. I mean, I wish I could get Ricky Morgan, another one of the another podcasters involved with many podcasts and music as well. But I wish I could get him on to talk about Todd with us because Todd Rundgren is one of his favorite artists. So he can add some insight that I'm sure we don't even have. So that would be nice. But yeah, we're gonna have Todd Rundgren, and then we're also gonna have from March 2nd, the Doobie Brothers, The Captain and Me. Oh my gosh, it's going to be excellent. You know what I left out? Because I saved it for the last. We're going to have a new segment coming up. We're going to have, is it Luke Loves Listening?
Yeah, we're gonna go with that.
Yeah, we're going to have
He
a
does
Luke,
love listening.
a Luke solo. I know, to the wrong things. John Cale, 1919. But anyway, he is going to be reviewing a solo Electric Light Orchestra ELO 2. And I don't know if we did. Did we do ELO or did we miss it?
I
mean,
think
I
we
already
missed
know.
it.
I already know Electric Light Orchestra. I'm not a huge fan. I do like some of their stuff.
Oh, they're great.
Not a huge fan.
Well, at least their later stuff is.
Yeah, the early stuff. Not a huge fan. I'll just say that. So I don't know how that one's going to go. I don't know ELO 2. Maybe I've heard maybe a song or two off of it. But as a whole album, no, I have not yet. So I'm anxious to see what his thoughts are going to be on that. Because I'm going to listen to it as well. You know, I always do. But, so we can see, I can see, how closely our opinions on that album are going to be. But I am going to be talking about Fleetwood Mac's Penguin. I don't think that's going to be a huge Fleetwood Mac album. We'll see. It may surprise me, but I don't think so. But, and finally, you are going to be talking about MFSB.
Mother, father, sister, brother.
Mm-mm.
Don't be making any other jokes. I see it on your face.
That's what it was. Oh my gosh, Kenny. So, but yeah, you're going to be talking about, and it's self-titled album. So it's going to be a very, very, very packed episode. If everyone is out there listening along, you're going to have a lot of music to listen to, like we always do. Like this episode this week has went really long. So if you make it through this episode, I congratulate you. Just like John Cale 1919. Catch us in the back half. It gets better. So 100 episodes next week, guys. But I don't really have anything else to add because we have talked long this week. But do you have anything else to add, Amy?
No, we've got to get off here so I can go listen to Dark Side of the Moon again.
That's probably what I'll start my day with as well. So, everyone out there, like I always say, have a happy, healthy, safe week. Be sure to listen to all these great albums and catch us on Instagram at Chord Chronicles or on, all the podcasts. If you're already listening, you can pick whatever your preferred platform is, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Stitcher. The list goes on and on. Or we can get you an RSS feed. Or let us know if your preferred listening platform isn't, we don't have Chord Chronicles on there because we'll get you. We'll take care of you. So with that being said, I had to get it in one more time. I hope everyone does have a happy, healthy, safe week. Be thinking about me because tomorrow's going to be awesome. And I guess we'll see what the additional things that I have coming up as well are going to be. But take care, guys, and have a great week.